On to the next gadget. If you're coming to this video without watching 2 videos ago or the video before, you might be a little confused. We are building gadgets, which is basically an inventory of abilities or functions or other sorts of things that could be useful to our player. And under that category, I'm including things such as a flashlight. As you can probably see by the title of this video, we're going to make a compass in the style of a gadget. So this isn't going to be the compass that sits at the top of your HUD, like a wayfinder. We're going to do that at a later date because it is a bit more advanced, but this one's a little more simple and it gets us back into user interface stuff. And without further ado, let's get started. The very first thing we're going to do is pop down to user interface, right click, and we're going to create another user interface widget blueprint. And that user interface widget blueprint is going to be called utility underscore compass. Popping in here, we can see that this is just like any other HUD. We can put things on here and they'll be represented on screen so long as we tell something to call that. We're going to put our compass on here. That compass is just going to be an image because it's going to be a 2D element. Now you can make this as fancy as you want in your own project. I'm just going to focus on the functionality. So pop over here, get an image, and drag it in. Now I'm going to put my compass in the bottom left. You can put yours again wherever you want. When it comes to UI stuff, it's entirely up to you how you want to design it. As for the image, let's go back over to test and select our imports folder. This time it's going to be a compass, so we will call this folder compass. Hop into there, hit import, and there'll be a link for this in the description. Now that it's imported, just like the last time, we want to edit the properties here, but because we only have one thing here, I'm going to right click and select edit. Pop down to level of detail and select UI. Save, close that compass texture, and now here, for our image, when we click on this and type in compass, our compass will appear. Now we could size to content. This is quite huge though, remembering that this is going to sit on top of our other HUDs, so imagine the health bar here and everything else. That is quite huge. We don't need it to be quite that big, so we won't size to content. We will keep it as a square though. Grab our size and punch in something along the lines of maybe 250. That's not too bad for now. Again, we can come back and change this. We'll anchor to the bottom left, negative 250. And now because we're anchored, you can see here that these numbers work out a lot better. And don't forget to compile and save. Let's pop over to the event graph next. And believe it or not, we are actually going to use the event tick for once. We don't need pre-construct or construct. We can get rid of them for now. Let's drag up the event tick. And then off of the event tick, we're going to drag in our image. Get image. This is the image that we've just selected. If we go back to the designer, we can see that this image has a name. And if you wanted to name it, you could change the name here, or you could change the name under canvas panel. For example, let's change it to compass image. And now that will come across over here so we can understand what's going on. For larger UIs, you can see why that would be much easier to understand by naming things as opposed to having 1,000 images with no names. Next up, we're going to drag off and go set render transform angle. And this does essentially what you think it does. It changes the angle of the image. Now it's a little bit different to our X, Y, and Z in a 3D space as the HUD is a 2D space. Next thing we're going to do is create a variable, and that variable is going to be called bearing. This variable is going to be what drives our compass and what angle to insert. You can see here we have a float value here, so we're going to change this to a float. Compile and save that. Drag it in. If you hold control, you'll get your getter instead of your setter. And then drag off of this and hit shift and star on your keyboard so you get a float times float. And we want to times this by -1. And then we're going to plug in said bearing, line up our nodes. So with that done, let's pop back over to our test map, back up to blueprints. We're going to go into gadgets, right click on base gadget and create child blueprint class. And we will call this compass. We'll save that for now and open up our gadget_compass. On the front, we don't need anything. This is going to be invisible for now. You might want to put something in here like a little compass type 3D model. We don't have that for now. We just want the player to be able to interact with this particular blueprint. Just like before, we're going to use the event tick to check which way the player is facing. We won't need overlap, so we can get rid of that. We'll just move the tick up for now. And just like all of our gadgets, we will need activate gadget, the event, and deactivate gadget, also the event. We'll also need is gadget active, 2 of those setters, but we're not going to plug them in first. We're going to plug them in just a moment. We'll also need the getter is gadget active, because instead of this event tick firing the script all the time, we can just get the event tick to fire the script only when this boolean is true. So we'll get a branch and plug that into the event tick. So only when our gadget's active will this event tick actually be doing something. How much of a performance hit you'll get from an event tick running into a branch and doing nothing, I can't see any situation where you'd be able to notice that. It's stacking event ticks on top of each other and using them for heavier processes that would be detrimental to perform. So on the beginning of activate gadget, we're going to get player controller. Once we've got player controller, we drag off and create widget. And utility compass is the widget we want to create. We're going to drag off return value and promote to variable, and we're going to call this compass reference. We'll straighten up these nodes while we're here. And then we're going to add to viewport. So that's what's going to happen when we hit our button. We will be adding a UI on top of our other UI, which the player won't notice at all. They'll just notice the compass pop in the bottom left or wherever you've put your compass. Now, after that, we're going to grab ourselves an isValid and plug that in on the other side. So we're going to check to make sure the compass got spawned in. Make sure that that indeed is a happening thing. And then once it's been spawned in, that is when we're going to set our gadget as active. Now that hero reference I told you about inside of our parent class, that's going to come in handy for this tick. We're going to get hero reference. And then we're going to get actor rotation. Now we don't really care about our X and Y values. We only care about the Z value, so which way we're facing. So right click on return value and split struct pin. Now go back over to your compass reference, holding control, and type in set bearing, which is that variable we created back inside of our utility, which was also connected to the event tick there. Drag over the Z value or Z value, depending on where you're from, and plug the bearing into true. So that's the meat of it, really. That's what's driving this, is this event tick telling us which way we're facing. The rest is just putting it on screen. Once that's clean enough to your liking, pop down to event deactivate gadget, drag in that compass reference again, and get remove from parent, which will remove the HUD when deactivated. It doesn't matter which way you put these two at this point, but we will put the setter at the end just to match up there. So that should be the script. There's a wide view. We'll compile and save. Back over to test, go into core, open up hero, select gadget slot 2. And instead of a gadget base, we're going to select gadget compass. Compile and save. Now if we hit play and we hit 2, our compass pops up on screen. And if you face north, your compass will face north, west, south, east. The compass is following us as we go, working exactly the way it intended. Obviously, you might want to put some sort of fancy backdrop behind this, but for just showing you the functionality, here it is. So we'll press 2 again, and our compass will disappear. And that's it for the compass.